Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The renewal process in the heavyweight division is continuing, with two further prospects pushing their way into the WBO top 15. And they come into the 15 after Tyrone Spong dips out after his failed drug test, and Luis Ortiz, he is out because of his upcoming shot against Deontay Wilder in the WBC, so he dips out altogether. So in their place, and what I'll do, normally I start at the top, but I'll actually come down to the bottom first. You have at number 15, Germain Franklin. So he's just had a fight recently with Pavel Sauer. Didn't look fantastic in that, but he got the win comfortably enough, but arguably in many fans' minds, he probably should have stopped Sauer, who has been stopped before in the first round against a fellow prospect, Filip Hrgovic, who dusted him off pretty easily enough. But Franklin, he's continued to win, and he is now, 20-0, and he's pushed his way into the top 15 at 15th spot. I think there's a lot of question marks about Jermaine Franklin, where he can go, what he can do, how far he can go in the heavyweight division, what is his ceiling. But at the moment, he's unbeaten, but some of that could be courtesy of good matchmaking. But maybe these are the right fights at the right time in terms of his development. Maybe he needs that level, and he is getting the test that he requires. I mean, some of these things will only really be able to sort of weigh in on maybe a year or two down the track. It could be good matchmaking, or it could be, developmental fights at the right time. I'm sort of thinking that his level, his ceiling is coming up, that he is going to really top out, maybe top 20, top 30 level, but we shall see. But he comes into the WBO top 15, I believe, for the first time. And ahead of him at number 14 is Australian WBO Africa champ, Demsey McKean. And you might be thinking, well, McKean, he's an Australian guy, he's white. How does he have the WBO Africa strapped? Well, actually, he fought a guy called Patrick Aninya, and this was for the vacant WBO Africa title. And it must be noted, both these guys are Australian residents, but Aninya was born in Nigeria, so I guess that does sort of account for the fact the title was put on the line, even though it wasn't contested in Africa, and Aninya is apparently a resident in Australia now. So, yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this, how this could have all happened, and I thought, well, it's just not worth the effort. After all, sanctioning bodies, if they could see a fight that they could get some sanctioning fees out of, well, they'll put a belt up here, there, and everywhere. So maybe it's not worth me overthinking these things, because it's sanctioning bodies after all. They're after the almighty dollar. So Demsey McKean, he is currently 16-0. He's been fighting out of Australia, 6'6", 29 years old, and really not too much on the record at the moment. There's a few of the usual sort of journeyman suspects on his record. Nascimento, you've also got Roger Eisenrite there, Will Nazio, Hunter Sam, and a couple of others. So he is at the point in his career now, he's got this regional title hit that's given him access to the WBO top 15 at number 14 in the rankings. So it's time, I guess, he takes that next step up, because 29, 16-0, it really is, I guess, time to really sort of see what his level is at, because I think arguably on his opposition so far, it's a little unclear. There is some people that do believe Demsey McKean has a lot of talent and he can go far, but it's, I guess it needs to, the rubber's got to hit the road now in terms of the step-up fights. At number 13, so we're working our way backwards, Ajit Kabayel, he's up 2 places this month, and it's a little bit strange that he's up, given he hasn't actually fought in some considerable time. He's just recently signed on to Top Rank on a co-promotional deal with his current promoters, SES Boxing. They also promote Tom Schwartz, so they're in the same stable. Kabayel due to either have a fight at the end of this year, or more likely at this stage, early 2020. He's had a bit of a down year this year in terms of activity, but he is a talent. Frank Sanchez-Fora, this is the second month he has been in the WBO rankings. He just had a fight over this past weekend against Giacomo Lawai. He's won. He's still in the rankings here, obviously, at number 12. Wasn't a fantastic performance, but I guess at a few days' notice and against a very negative opponent, a win is a win is a win. At number 11, Carlos Takam, he's up 1 place this month. He is also another guy that signed on with ESPN and Top Rank in a co-promotional deal. He's also promoted by Star Boxing. At number 10, we have Tom Schwartz, who has been consistently ranked in the WBO, even despite that recent loss to Tyson Fury, for 3 years straight now. So he did drop down to the back end of the top 15, but he's had a couple of warm-up fights, a couple of low-level sort of tune-up returns, and he has now climbed to number 10. So he's going upwards. He's up 3 places this month. Yevgeny Romanov, he's up a couple of places this month. And if you look at some of the names there, so we've got Franklin Demsey McKean, Ajit Kabayel, Frank Sanchez-Foray, you've got Tom Schwartz as well, Yevgeny Romanov. A lot of these guys are that next wave coming through. So it is becoming the prospects that are entering the later phase of their prospect stage, or they're somewhat fringe contenders. They are coming through. More of these guys are being ranked across different sanctioning bodies these days. And it sort of signals to me we're in a bit of a period where a lot of the guys that sort of turned pro about 4 or 5 years ago are really starting to sort of hit their straps and come through and starting to really take over the heavyweight division. Michael Hunter, he's another guy who's obviously moved up to heavyweight only about 18 months ago. He's at number 8 here. He's got a fight coming up with Alexander Povetkin in December on the Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz rematch card in Saudi Arabia. And that's another sort of changing of the guard type fight, because Alexander Povetkin, currently 40 years old. Hunter, he's starting to make some moves in the heavyweight division. He could probably, in my eyes, win that fight, look good, and move on to a big fight after Povetkin. It's not going to be easy. Povetkin will be dangerous early on, but I do believe Hunter wins that one, if not on points, by knockout. Junior Fa remains at number 7 in the rankings. He has a fight coming up in mid-November in Utah. Number 6, Daniel Dubois is at his highest ranking in the WBO. It says here he's got the international strap. The previous month it was the WBO Global, so I don't know if they've renamed it or whatever. But that is his highest ranking, and seemingly slowly working his way into a mandatory position. It's not going to happen this year and unlikely next, but if he keeps winning inside 18 months, he could near be at these top of these WBO rankings. Frank Warren is bringing him along. They're doing that whole every belt situation. They started him area level, got that title, English title, British title, Commonwealth. They'll be looking for the European strap at some point, but they've picked up a few different regional titles within the WBO. He's at his highest position in his career to date, just 22 years old, and in a couple of years he's going to be a major threat in the heavyweight division. And it's at this point I'll just point out again, so Tyrone Spong previously had been at number 6. He has gone altogether after that failed VADA test, ahead of what would have been a scheduled fight with Alexander Usyk. And Luis Ortiz, who had been at 8, gone because of his shot coming up in the WBC for the title against Deontay Wilder. Number 5, holding firm, is Adam Kovnatski. No word on his next fight. He recently fought Chris Arreola in August. It would be good to see him take a step up of sorts from Arreola, who did put on a surprisingly good performance against Kovnatski, but Arreola was certainly faded and well past prime, and Kovnatski needs to have a more relevant opponent, in my opinion. Joseph Parker, he remains at number 4, and seemingly should the winner of the Joshua and Ruiz fight, if they drop the WBO belt, potentially Joseph Parker could be in line for a title shot against the WBO mandatory Alexander Usyk. Lots of ifs, buts and maybes. There has been some talk Joseph Parker will look to reschedule that fight with Derek Chisora, which has almost happened a couple of times in 2019, but he pulled out recently with a suspected spider bite. And it's worth noting that Derek Chisora, he's just picked up the vacant Intercontinental title. So he will next month be propelled probably inside the top 10. So Derek Chisora will be coming in at a pretty decent ranking, you'd imagine. The Intercontinental title within the WBO is a relatively significant regional belt. Anthony Joshua, he's at number 3, stays at 3, going to be having his rematch with Ruiz Jr. in December, as I mentioned. Tyson Fury at number 2. Some people might say, well, couldn't he have a fight with Alexander Usyk for a vacant belt? But I guess at the point that things sort of start to move and shake, he may be well tied up with a rematch with Deontay Wilder, so that would rule him out of that sort of scenario. So if Joseph Parker, if he stays at number 4, if things fall the way that Eddie Hearn has been predicting, with one of the belts dropping, and he thinks it would be the WBO, then Usyk and Parker could potentially square off in 2020, but there's a lot of runway between now and then, and it's the heavyweight division. Anything can and will happen. Who knows? Maybe we'll see Derek Chisora inserted into number 4 in the rankings next month. You can never say never in boxing, especially with these sanctioning bodies. Remaining at number 1 is Alexander Usyk, who is waiting for his title shot. Even though Derek Chisora and his promoter have been calling for a fight with Usyk, Usyk's people have said they're going to sit and wait for the title shot now. So I can't see the talk of that actually coming to anything, and I think if anything, it's really just more hype by David Haye, who's trying to talk Derek Chisora into some sort of big fight, a title fight, anything that he can get him that obviously gets them paid very well. Can't blame him. It's boxing after all. He's just doing his job, but the likelihood of it, I think it's remote in my view at least. What do you make of it all? Demsey McKean joins the rankings. Germain Franklin joins the rankings. 2 fresh faces for the WBO Top 15. And then you have Daniel Dubois at a career high 6 in the rankings. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.